Hello and welcome everyone to Oil Asset of the Day, where we'll be looking at oil prices for the week ahead. So first of all, what do you need to know at the moment for oil? We've discussed this in detail last week, but you want to be aware that as we go into July, the OPEC meeting has been now moved. So the OPEC meeting will be taking place in the first week of July, and with that, we'll be looking out for the rhetorics and narratives with respect to the potential to extend the output cuts to later on in the year. Now, we've seen explosive moves with oil prices last week. WTI crude oil rising over 10%, Brent crude oil rising over 5% to the upside after we saw a military drone from the US which was shot down, and Iran has had the blame from that essentially from the United States. And as such, we've seen the United States retaliate with additional sanctions on Iran on Monday. And that has really spurred oil prices significantly higher over the latest week. So we did discuss in the previous week that you really wanted to look at evidence of support coming in for WTI crude oil around that $50 per barrel handle and Brent crude oil around that $60 level. And that's worked out really perfectly. In fact, our long position on oil, we're up approximately about 200 points on that trade right now after banking partial profits. After banking partial profits last week with just under 300 points on the significant breakout that we saw after the Federal Reserve on Wednesday. And in fact, we banked over 500 points between our metals positions and oil positions last week. And as we mentioned, the research-driven approach in these markets is very important. Hedge funds and money managers, they've now started to accumulate on the net long side for oil, and we've seen a big shift in the latest week with them starting to buy the recent dip. And of course, we're getting closer to the OPEC meeting next week, which will be potentially a major catalyst here for oil prices as we continue throughout the next quarter. And as we go into the end of this week as well, we really want to see how things go between the US and China at the G20 meetings. We want to see how those meetings go and whether we see a positive rhetoric regarding the potential for a trade deal between the US and China, which again can lift oil prices. We've also seen the US dollar, of course, breaking down to 3-month lows, which does tend to lift other commodities against that. And with that, we have seen, of course, alongside oil, we've also seen breakouts, the upside, significant breakouts with also gold and silver too. With respect to oil at the moment, the major ranges that I would really keep an eye on this week for WTI crude oil in particular will be for support to come in around that 56 to 57 US dollar per barrel handle. I am looking, if we do get potential upside over the course of this week off the back of either the API data or the oil inventories. We saw a drawdown last week, and if we do see another drawdown this week, I'm looking at the next major level of resistance around 58 to 59 US dollars per barrel for WTI crude oil. As I mentioned, we've got a bullish bias at the moment. We are long oil with our stop loss protected, and we continue to ride up profits over the latest week here. So we are looking to see whether we will get some additional upside on oil. The major news items that you really want to keep out for this week, or look out for this week, are of course going to be Wednesday's oil inventories data, which will be at 3:30 BST. And you also want to have a look out for later on in the week, the G20, and how things really go between the potential talks that we're going to see between the US and China as a result of some sort of negotiation between the US and China on tariffs. We really want to have a look at how things go with those talks later on in the week. Bear in mind as well, beginning of next week, we have the OPEC meeting too, and we've still got that geopolitical risk right now as well, which is really acting as a major catalyst for oil prices at the moment. Of course, we have seen between the US and Iran at the moment that geopolitical risk and the intensified risk of potential retaliation for the United States over the weekend from a military drone being shot down last week. And then the week before that, we of course saw 2 oil tankers which were attacked as well, and Iran was given the blame for that by the United States. And we have really seen oil prices rally significantly since that point. So you want to watch out for further updates. It's very important, again, to be on it with respect to news feeds right now. Breaking news, you want to look out for that for both the OPEC meeting, oil inventories data, and also the G20 later on this week, which is why it's so important to have a research-driven approach to these markets. So with that, I wish you good trading.